Hey guys! So, I'm back with another video. Today's video is going to be my January wrap-up. I'm just going to be going through really quickly the books that I read this past month. I read 8 books, which is like a lot for me. I normally read like maybe 5 books a month, especially now with the semester starting. I feel like I'm not going to be able to read 8 books in a month. So, anyways, without further ado, let's get into the video. The first book that I read this month is Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. If you don't know what this book is about, then where have you been? If you've watched any of the videos on my channel, then you have seen me talk about this book. Especially my last video where I posted a review about this book. And if you haven't seen that, I will link it down in the description box below. So you can get my in-depth thoughts about it. But basically, we follow our main character, Chloe, she has like a near-death experience and she decides to change her life, and she makes a list of, it's almost like a bucket list kind of thing, but she makes a list of things that she wants to do in order to get a life, right? So some of these things, they're on the back of the book. It says, enjoy a drunken night out, ride a motorcycle, go camping, have meaningless but thoroughly enjoyable sex, travel the world with nothing but hand luggage, and do something bad. So those are just some of the things on her list. Another thing is like move out, but she does that at the very beginning of the book, so they don't really mention it like in depth, you know? But anyways, along the way, when she moves out, she moves into this like apartment complex and she meets Red, who is the superintendent of the apartment complex, and they kind of have this like, at first you're like, oh my god, they hate each other, like they can't stand to see each other, and then you realize that they both secretly like each other, and they're just like weird about it, okay? They just don't know how to express their emotions. So romance ensues, and it's a really spicy novel. I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read in January is Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. So the way I've been describing this is, the main character, Amira Tucker, I think she's like 25 at the start of this book, and she works as like a babysitter for this white family, and Amira is black. And basically what happens is she gets called up late at night, around like 11 at night, because there's like an incident at the family's house that she babysits for, and they call her up like, hey, we need to call the police and we don't want our child to get freaked out by the police. Like, can you come and just take her out to the supermarket and like distract her for a little bit while we deal with the police? So Amira's like, okay, I'll do that, sure. She takes the child out to the supermarket, and she's just like, you know, they're looking around the supermarket like they normally do. Basically, somebody in the store thinks that she kidnapped this child and calls security on her. So security is like, ma'am, whose child is this? And she's like, this is my child. Like, I'm babysitting this child right now. I'm being paid to be here with this child. And they don't believe her until she finally calls the parent, like the dad of the child. And then things get sorted out. But it all gets caught on video, like this security guard like being like, why are you here with this child? It is obviously not your child. And just like questioning her. And they're even questioning the little kid, like asking her like, so who is this woman? Do you know this woman? And it's like a really skeevy situation, you know? And that is what starts off the story. And you kind of follow along as Amira is trying to deal with like kind of the aftermath of that situation, and also you're following the family who they have a lot of stuff going on, okay? Like, let's be real. So it's a really interesting book. I gave it, I believe, a 4 out of 5 stars. It was really good. I really enjoyed my time reading this book. The next book I read is All Boys Aren't Blue by George M. Johnson. Sorry, I just had to check the time. This cover is stunning. This cover is stunning. I really enjoyed this book, honestly. This is literally just a memoir about George M. Johnson and his life growing up as a queer black man. And he talks about all the struggles growing up in the Black community, trying to come to terms with his identity and his sexuality, and not being able to find the right words to describe like how he identifies as, and also dealing with the scrutiny of like other people in the Black community just like bullying him and putting him down for the way he acts, just like being himself, like not even like doing anything, just him being himself. And it's a really interesting and like profound book that I really enjoyed reading. I did give this a 3 out of 5 stars. Well, I think I made it like a 3.5 out of 5 stars, because I really did enjoy all the points that he made and like all the topics that he talked about, but it just wasn't like as compelling as I was expecting it to be. Like I heard so many people giving it like a 5 out of 5 stars, and it just wasn't like a solid 5 out of 5 stars for me. It wasn't like so profound that I like cried, like it wasn't anything like that. But I really did enjoy my time reading this book, and I highly recommend that you read this, especially if you're trying to I don't know how to put it. If you're trying to look at different identities and learn about different people that are not like you. Like obviously I am a white female, you know, and I may be gay, but like I'm not Black, and I don't know what it's like to be Black and queer and have those two identities and like know what it's like being marginalized like that. So yeah, I thought it was a really interesting read, and I did learn a lot just reading about his life. So I really enjoyed my time reading this book, and you should read it too. Okay, so the next 2 books that I don't actually have with me because I got them from the library, and I have since returned them to the library. But the first one that I read is Beyond the Gender Binary by Alok Vaid Menon. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Or their name. I'm not sure what their pronouns are. Basically, it was just one of those little pocket guide books, so it was like really small, and like it literally like could fit in your pocket. Like it was really small. It was like 60 pages long, but it talks about the gender binary and just how ridiculous it is that we have this system. Yeah, it just talks about this system that we have, that this binary system of gender that puts you into like 2 different boxes, and anything else is like, it's a no. Like it's not real to what, you know, people like. Some people have this perception that like anybody who's not male or female, they're just like not real, especially like trans people. It's ridiculous. But anyways, so the book talked about the gender binary and how for years it goes into a little bit about like the history of like non-binary people, just like a little bit. It talks about how like in other cultures, especially like I believe indigenous cultures, non-binary people were like revered, and they were put in places of power in their communities. And it was a really interesting read. Honestly, I know it was like a little pocket guide, and I knew going into it that it was a little pocket guide that was only 60 pages long, but I would have loved to read a book like that, but just longer, that went into depth about like the history of like non-binary people and transgender people, and like talking more in depth about the gender binary and how like we shouldn't be following this gender binary. Like there's not just 2 genders, there's more than 2 genders. There's so many genders under the sun, like people, like all of that stuff. So I really enjoyed my time reading this book. I gave it, let's see what I gave it. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I did take a star off because I wanted it to be longer. That was my only gripe with it, honestly, but other than that, I really enjoyed my time reading this book. The next book that I have to share with you is, again, like I said, a book I returned to the library, but it is called The Black Flamingo by Dean Atta, from, I think that's how you pronounce the name, the last name at least. But it's about this boy who, I believe they're in the UK because the narrator had like a British accent, so I believe that they're in the UK, and the main character is this, again, queer Black boy, and Sorry, I just got distracted. Anyways, so the story follows this queer black boy who's just going through high school, and it's written in verse. I believe that's the right word. Like when it's written like poetry. Written in verse, I believe that's the correct term. I'm not really like a literary student. I'm not an English major or anything. I don't know like terms or anything. But yes, it's written in verse. And I had a really good time reading this book. It went by really fast because again, it's written in verse, and gosh, I keep getting distracted. So it's written in verse, and yeah, I kind of blew through this book in a couple days. I really enjoyed my time reading this book. I feel like I keep saying that during this video, but honestly, I had a really good reading month for January, which is a really great start to the year. This book follows the main character. I forget what his name is. He's a mixed race, actually, gay teen, and so he's coming to terms with his identity as a mixed race teen in general, but also as a gay teen. And he kind of finds himself through drag, and yeah, that's all I really have to say about it. Like, I think you should definitely give this book a read. It has some really cool insights into like the drag community a little bit, and also like George M. Johnson's book just talks about being mixed in this case and being gay, and what it's like having those two identities kind of intermix, and like what it's like being marginalized in that way. So yeah, I had a really fun time reading that book, and I gave it a 3.5 stars out of 5. The next book I have to share with you is one of my favorite books from this month. I have a soft spot for this book. It's Felix Ever After by Kaysen Callender. Can we admire how gorgeous this cover is? Like, look at Felix. Isn't he so cute? I love him. I love him. Anyways, so the main character is Felix. Felix is a transgender teen. I believe he is mixed as well. But he is trying to come to terms with his identity and possibly even his pronouns, and like coming to terms. He's trying to figure out himself, basically. Like, he's kind of questioning, like, am I transgender still? Like, what is going on? Am I gay? Am I queer? Am I straight? Like, I don't know what is going on. That's his internal struggle going on, okay? And then also, this is what drives the plot. So somebody in his school, he goes to, like, an art school, from what I believe. But somebody in his school puts up this gallery of, like, all of his before transition, like, pictures from, like, they put up his dead name and everything, like, and they make a whole gallery of, like, what he looked like before his transition. And it's, like, obviously that's very triggering as a transgender person, like, having to see those pictures that you don't want people to see of you, and, like, having your dead name up there, like, that is traumatizing. But then he starts getting, like, harassed online by someone in his class, but it's, like, all done anonymously. So he's trying to figure out throughout the story, like, who is doing it, like, who could be behind all of this, like, online bullying and this gallery. And all the while he's trying to figure out love as well. Like, he's never been in love, and he wants to know what it's like to be in love. And boy, was this a roller coaster of a book. I love this book because Felix isn't, like, a perfect main character. Like, most of the time when you're reading books, the main character, in my opinion, from what I've seen, the main character does something bad for a good reason, and you're like, oh, it's fine because it's for a good reason, right? And it's justified. But Felix doesn't. He tries to justify his actions, but it's not really justifiable, if that makes sense. I don't know. But anyways, you can see that Felix isn't a perfect main character, is what I'm trying to say. and that's what I loved about him. It makes him a little more relatable, which I really enjoyed. I really loved reading about Felix. He's so cute. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars, if you could not tell how much I'm gushing about it. But I loved reading about Felix. Listen, okay, I thought I was past all the reading about high school stuff, because this is like, Felix is in high school and he's getting ready to go, like, send his applications into college. I am in college, so I thought that I was already past all of that, but no, I loved this book, okay? And I highly suggest that you go read this too, if you're looking for a good book, alright? This could not stress it enough how good this book is. That's all I have to say. I'm on to the last 2 books of this video, this wrap up. This book I was really excited to read because it was a part of the late night book club's book club. It was their January pick. It is The Shining by Stephen King. I have watched the movie The Shining like countless times, but I've never actually sat down and read the book. This was my first time reading the book all the way through. And honestly, it was like really different from the movie. I really enjoyed it. I was kind of surprised by it. Yeah, I was kind of surprised by how different it was to the movie. But I really enjoyed my time reading it. It was not as scary as I thought it was going to be. Honestly, like the movie like creeps me out, but it doesn't scare me, and this book kind of creeped me out. It didn't really like scare me, but like there were parts that I was like, ooh, that's a little you know? But I gave this book a 3.5 out of 5 stars, mainly because it wasn't as spooky scary as I was hoping for. Like, and by that I mean like creepy, not like boo, scary, you know what I mean? More just creepy. But it wasn't as creepy scary as I was expecting. It did end a bit differently than I was expecting as well, like I said, because I've only watched the movie. Overall, I did really enjoy it, and I highly recommend that you read this if you are a fan of Stephen King and you've watched the movie. I think it definitely is a good experience to read the book after you've watched the movie, because they are different enough to where you'll still enjoy the book. It's really good. I highly recommend. Alright, and the last book I have for you is Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. There is a bit of a glare because I'm in front of my window. I'm in front of my window. There you go, there's no glare on that one. Anyways, if you don't know what Truly Devious is about, it's like a murder mystery kind of book. Basically, there's this school called like the Ellingham School or something for like gifted children, and the main character, Stevie, is enrolled at the school. It's like her first year, and her big project is trying to figure out the murder / the disappearance of the Ellingham family. So basically what happened is Mr. Ellingham, whatever his name is, gets a letter from this person called Truly Devious, or who calls himself Truly Devious, saying that like murder is about to ensue, blah blah blah. And then they find out, this is all happening in the 1930s, by the way, this part about Mr. Ellingham and his family. But then after he gets this letter, he finds out that his wife and his daughter have been kidnapped. Later on, it's found out that they find the wife's body, but they don't find the daughter's body. So for years and years, Mr. Ellingham is like hopeful that his daughter will come back soon. And so basically it's present day now with Stevie at the school, and she is like trying to figure out what happened to the daughter and like the murder of the wife as well, like trying to figure out who Truly Devious is. And then while she's doing that in her first year of college, in her first year of high school, she's also trying to figure out the murder of her classmate Hayes. Where in present day, Hayes, her classmate, has died, and it looks like an accident at first, but then Stevie uncovers that it actually wasn't an accident and it's a murder. So she tries to figure out that murder as well. And it's a really interesting book. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. because it wasn't as gripping as I thought it was going to be. Like, everybody on BookTube, from what I've seen, has been giving this book like a 5 out of 5 stars. But honestly, it wasn't like that compelling to me. It was interesting, like it kept my attention, but honestly, like, I don't know, it just wasn't as good as I was expecting. Like, it didn't meet my expectations, is what I'm saying. So I still recommend that you read this book. I think it's a good book to get into, but also if you heard my synopsis and were like kind of on the fence about it, you could do without it, honestly. Like, it's not really that big a deal. But I still enjoyed my time reading this book. Okay guys, that is it for my January wrap-up. Let me just hold up my books real quick. Yes! These are all like pretty thick books too. Like, they're like all over 300 pages from what I remember, which is like a lot for me, like I was saying in the beginning. I really enjoyed this month of reading. I'm so proud of myself that I read this many books, and they were all like really good. I didn't give any of them like 2 stars or anything. I honestly really did enjoy my time this month reading. I don't know, it was just a grand old time. But thank you so much for watching. If you are interested in following along on my reading journey, or even just like my plant journey or like my makeup journey, we might spice it up a little bit and add that in there, then subscribe to my channel, like this video if you liked it, and leave a comment down below what books you finished in the month of January, or just book if you've read only one book. That's still valid too. I have times when like I only am able to read 1 book a month because I'm just going through like a lot of stuff, you know? But anyways, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.